Welcome everyone to today's afternoon briefing on office equipment, the next frontier. I'm delighted to bring this session to you, but before I kick off, I'd like to begin by first acknowledging the many Aboriginal lands upon which we're all meeting virtually today, and pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past, present, and emerging. This session is a little different from the rest in that we don't have time scheduled for questions from the audience. However, our wonderful speakers, George, Craig and Emma, as well as a number of other CitySwitch representatives, are happy to connect with you via the meeting hub immediately following this session or later today and tomorrow. And of course, I am too. So why am I so excited about this session? Put simply, the Commonwealth Government recently commissioned the Energy Efficiency Council to undertake some research to determine disaggregated energy consumption in office tenancies, or more simply, what proportion of tenancies' energy consumption is attributable to specific office equipment and systems. With a lot of support from CitySwitch, neighbours and Point Advisory, we've nailed down the figures for lighting and office equipment, and we will be sub-metering some office tenancies early next year to validate the findings on supplementary HVAC. This means that the research report won't be made public until next year, but we're able to give you the preliminary results, noting of course that the lighting and office equipment figures are firm. Given that these figures are firm, CitySwitch and the Energy Efficiency Council are launching a new sector spotlight for office-based businesses. This will accompany the existing Navigating a Dynamic Energy Landscape resources, and we'll be launching this new office-based sector spotlight in 2 weeks on Wednesday, 9 December. This resource will be used to support office-based businesses with lowering their energy consumption, and you can expect to see myself and the CitySwitch team at some events next year. If you'd like to join us for the virtual launch on the 9th, you can find the details for this in the Energy Efficiency Council Energy Briefing stall in the portal and in the discussion forum on the platform right now. So with all that in mind, what did the research illustrate? George Wang from Point Advisory is best placed to answer that, as he led on the modelling and analysis of this research. And for those of you that haven't previously met George, he's a manager in the energy and climate change team at Point Advisory in Melbourne. George holds a master's degree in mechanical engineering and has over 9 years' experience in energy efficiency and sustainable built environment consulting. He has extensive experience in energy audits, building monitoring and building tuning for commercial and retail buildings. He is a certified energy efficiency specialist and a chartered engineer in Australia. George has a special interest in data analytics and believes that big data will be a key driver for energy efficiency and energy management, which ties in really well to the research we've just done. So George, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon for the discussion of the energy end use in office tenancies. So as just Holly mentioned that earlier this year, the Commonwealth Government commissioned Energy Efficiency Council and Point Advisory to conduct research on the office tenancy energy end use. The backdrop of this study is from the independent review of the Commercial Building Disclosure Program last year. The review suggests that the expansion of the CBD program to the office tenancies can deliver net benefit to the community. However, we find that there is a significant lack of data in terms of the energy consumption in office tenancies, but more importantly, the disaggregated energy use breakdown in tenancies. So this study is exactly set up to answer those questions. And today, I'm just going to give you a preview and the briefing about the findings so far. Next slide, please. So in terms of methodology we use a combination of data analysis, tenancy surveys, and the data modeling in this study. So in the data analysis, we connected the neighbors rating data from FY 2010 to 2020, and we also connected the tenant lighting assessment data. For the tenancy surveys, Point Advisory worked in collaboration with EEC and CitySwitch to develop a survey for this study's purposes. And the survey focused on two major areas. The first area is the energy management practice by each individual tenancies. And the second area is the survey on the equipment count for each individual types of office equipment. And combining those two, the data analysis and also the data we connected from the survey, we were able to use the data modeling method to develop the base building and tenancy energy split, and also the tenancy and energy end use breakdown. The diagram on the right-hand side shows you, gives you information about how did we go about and do this data modeling. And for example, to determine the lighting consumption, we used the tenant lighting assessment data together with the operational hours data in the neighbors to determine that. And for office equipment, we used the equipment counts from the tenancy survey and also the typical annual consumptions for each type of equipment to estimate the consumption in that category. For supplementary HVAC, we did not develop a reliable way to estimate the consumptions by using a tenant survey method. However, we were able to identify some data points from the neighbors data set where supplementary HVAC was separately metered, and we were able to develop the split using those data sets. Next slide, please. So here give you some very a brief overview of the case statistics in the neighbors data set. So we connected the FY19 to 20 neighbors tenancy rating data set, and the average energy intensity is about 275 megajoules per square meter, and we have about 348 ratings. And you should note that although we used the data from FY19 to 20, by looking at the rating records, we can see that the vast majority of the tenancies used utility data prior to March 2020, before the COVID, when the COVID lockdown began. So the data here presented here pretty much is a representation of the pre-COVID-19 operations. And we sampled around 27 tenancy response, and that gives us a sampling margin of error roughly 14%. On the right-hand side, you can see the distribution of the energy intensity of the neighbors group, and also the distribution of the energy intensity of our surveyed group. Next slide, please. So the first findings is the energy use split between the base buildings and tenancies. As you can see, the tenancies accounts for roughly 44% of the whole building energy consumption, while base building accounts for 56%. In an average Australian office buildings, the tenancies energy share is probably higher than 44%, because the methodology we used is we're using the neighbors data set to estimate the tenancy energy consumption. The neighbors data set is probably a higher performing data set than an average Australian tenancies. On the right-hand side is an overall energy use breakdown in office tenancies. As you can see, the lighting consumption accounted for 29% of the whole tenancy consumption, followed by the monitors, which is about 17%. The computers in total is about 7%, so does the server equipment. You will notice that the other energy consumption accounts for roughly 1/3 of the total energy consumption in office tenancies. So the other energy consumption includes supplementary HVAC consumption, includes data center consumption co-located in an office tenancies. It also can include some energy consumption that's beyond the scope of office tenancies, For example, if an office tenancy located in a mixed-use building, is very likely the consumption, the rated consumption can include some basic HVAC services. It's very important to note that when you look at the pie chart on the right-hand side, it does not really represent any one particular tenancy or atypical Australian tenancy. Instead, it's the overall breakdown when you randomly select a group of Australian tenancies together, when you combine them together, and that's how the energy use breakdown will be looking like. Next slide, please. So in terms of general lighting and power energy use, roughly 44% of the consumption is attributable to lighting, followed by the monitors, about 25%. The computers in total is roughly 10%, together with the server equipment is roughly 11%. Printers accounts for roughly 2% of consumption. The reason why we separate the printers out from the other equipment is that we find that the printers are the next type of office equipment with considerable energy consumption, but have not been regulated by minimum energy efficient performance standards maps. All other equipment like the TVs and the fridges with the similar kind of consumptions are already regulated by maps. On the right-hand side, it's a split between the office lighting and power, general lighting and power consumption, and the supplementary HVAC consumption. So as I mentioned before, the split of this pie chart is developed through based on the neighbors data set. So we managed to find 5 neighbors ratings, historical neighbors rating in after 2016, where supplementary HVAC services were separately metered. And the average of those supplementary HVAC services is roughly 25% of the whole tenancy consumption in office tenancies where those services are present. It should note that we noticed that the variance of the proportion of the supplementary HVAC varies significantly. There is one trailing facility. The supplementary HVAC accounts for roughly 70% of the whole site consumption, while some other tenancies are only account for roughly less than 5%. I guess the message here is that the proportion of the supplementary HVAC really depends on the services it provided and how it's being operated. Next slide, please. So after we find out the baseline energy use breakdown for general lighting and power, we explored a few opportunities we anticipate in the next 10 years, and then we can map out the energy intensity changes between 2020 to 2030. So the key opportunities that we incorporate in this graph are the first one is the lighting upgrade. Through our study, we find the average lighting power density within our surveyed group when we cross-check with the tenant lighting assessment data is roughly 8.9 watts per square meter. We anticipate that can be reduced to as low as 4.5 watts per square meter, which is in line with the current maximum illumination power density in offices in the NCC 2019. We also incorporate the upgrade of efficiency monitors. As you can see, the monitors account for quite a big proportion. Through our research, we find out the median-sized monitors, the average consumption per year is roughly 97 kilowatts hour. Compared to a same size monitor, if the energy rating is above 6 stars, the annual consumption can be 64 kilowatts hour. So we incorporate that into this change as well. Some other changes we incorporate in the changes between 2020 to 2030 are the replacement of desktop computers with laptop computers, and also the minimum energy efficiency standards improvement for all the equipment regulated by MAPS. And on the right-hand side, you can see the breakdown comparison between 2020 to 2030. As you can see, as the lighting consumption reduced, the lighting the share of the energy used reduced, the other equipment, particularly the other systems without any efficiency measures, will increase their share in office tenancies. Next slide, please. So based on this research, we identified a few areas for energy efficiency improvement for office tenancies, like lighting upgrade, and also the efficiency monitors replacement are the ones that I just talked about. The third one is supplementary HVAC. As I demonstrated before, that we only have very limited data in terms of supplementary HVAC consumption. And the idea here is that we recommend tenancies to sub-meter their supplementary HVAC services, and to really understand how much the energy goes into these systems. And the idea is that once the tenants find out how much their energy use is attributable to supplementary HVAC, it can be a driver for them to explore efficiency opportunities in this particular system. So this is the report that we just completed, the milestone report. In the next steps, we are going to do some temporary sub-meterings on office tenancies in March 2021, when the office sector returns to a semi-normal kind of a status. And our focus will be on the split between the supplementary HVAC and the general lighting and the power consumption. We also recommend support the office-based business through CitySwitch and EEC's new sector spotlight. And when we finish the report, we will discuss a list of recommendations that we put it in the report, including exploring adding the maps for the printers. As I mentioned before, the printers are the next type of office equipment with considerable consumptions, but has not been regulated by maps just yet. Next slide, please. And lastly, I'd really like to thank Energy Efficiency Council, CitySwitch, and neighbors for the support for this study, particularly CitySwitch for pushing out the tenancy surveys through its network. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks very much, George. I think that was a great summary of the methodology and the overall outcomes of the report, and indeed what we're doing next. And with regards to that, I guess noting that you ended on the opportunity around office equipment that isn't currently covered by the GEMS Act, printers being one such thing, I'd love to introduce Craig Heckenberg, the Managing Director of Epson Australia. So Craig has risen through the ranks at Epson Australia over the past 2 decades, to most recently becoming Managing Director. Epson has had incredible growth under his stewardship, including lifting commercial print revenue by over 450% and printer sales by over 170%. Craig is responsible for Epson's entire product portfolio of printers, scanners, projectors, commercial and industrial products for the Australian and New Zealand region. Craig also heads up the leadership team devising and setting the company's overall strategy around policy, planning and business management goals. So with that in mind, I am just awaiting Craig joining me. If you're able to join me, Craig, wonderful. So Craig, I'd love for you to make some opening comments about the outcomes of the research.
Thank you, Holly, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to firstly start by commending the Energy Efficiency Council for conducting this important research. At Epson, we firmly believe that this research will help to start a conversation about energy use within the office, and in doing so, educate businesses everywhere about what they can do to reduce their own energy consumption. When we look at the research, we note that IT equipment accounts for almost half of the energy consumption in the office. And in the category of IT equipment, the research has identified that printers and copiers account for the largest power draw of any single device after PC and servers. Whilst reducing your energy consumption from PC and servers is still quite limited, it's important to note the same cannot be said for printers and copiers. Today, businesses everywhere have a clear choice between two printing technologies, one that consumes a lot of energy and one that doesn't. You see, by simply switching from a laser printer or copier to a business inkjet printer, businesses can reduce their energy use without compromising on performance or cost. For example, if you take an A3 color laser copier, which uses heat to print, it consumes up to 2,400 watts to print just one page. But that same very page can also be printed using as little as 42 watts with an energy efficient business inkjet printer. Now you all might be asking, why the big difference? Well, the reason for the substantial reduction in energy consumption comes from the fact that Epson's range of business inkjet printers are equipped with heat-free technology, which consume less than 10% of the energy when compared to equivalent laser printers and copiers. And like many businesses in this country, they have multiple devices located around the office. So the energy and cost savings can be substantial when you look across your entire printer fleet. According to the latest research data, there was over about 500,000 laser printers and copiers sold in the country over the past 12 months. Now that's a lot of high energy devices now sitting on the grid, drawing energy from the network. But if every one of those laser printers and copiers were replaced with an energy efficient business inkjet printer, it would be the equivalent to taking out 100,000 TVs off the energy network. Now, however, the good news is people are becoming more environmentally conscious, and we are seeing businesses today make the switch to inkjet. But we still have more work to do by making better print and copy choices, which can help us reduce our energy use and associated CO2 emissions. Which is why we at Epson are very pleased, and we believe that this research is a great way to start a conversation regarding energy consumption in the office.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Craig. I just want to highlight the fact that the research demonstrates that printers consume about 3.5% of office equipment energy consumption in the survey tenants, but with an average of only 3.3 printers per tenancy, it also demonstrated that printers have a substantial power draw, meaning that offices that are printing intensive, and indeed businesses that are printing intensive, could make substantial savings by moving from laser to inkjet. So noting this, the research recommended that printers and multifunctional devices, being copiers and scanners and the likes, be explored for inclusion in the list of equipment regulated by the Greenhouse Energy Minimum Standards Act. How does Epson feel about a recommendation like this as a printing company?
Yeah, we would support any initiative that would encourage businesses to reduce their energy consumption in the office. I mean, Epson is working proactively to improve its environmental performance of its products and is already using renewable energy in its production sites in and around Japan in order to create new products that can contribute to our customers' own efforts to reduce their impact on the environment. For example, one way in which we are looking to do this and achieve this is through our range of business inkjet printers. And when we couple that with our unique paper making solution, Paper Lab, which by the way, securely and efficiently recycles printed documents in-house, we can create, with the support of our customers, a truly circular economy that will contribute to preserving our natural resources. And while Epson is focused on achieving sustainability through the use of its products and technologies, Epson has also adopted 14 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals set out by the United Nations General Assembly to support its own business activities, and is playing its part to make the world a better place.
I think it's really wonderful to see, Craig, that you not only are producing products that people can use to diminish their impact on the environment, but Epson is also practicing what it's preaching. And it's really great to see that you are using things like renewable energy in the production of your equipment. So with that in mind, Craig, thanks very much for joining me and taking me through the journey of how Epson can support, and indeed how inkjet printers can support businesses with reducing their energy consumption. So Craig's emphasis on sustainability leadership enables a really perfect pivot to Emma Baird, the National Program Manager for CitySwitch. Emma's based out of the city of Sydney, which is, of course, leading the drive to a net zero future. And Emma is, as the National Program Manager for CitySwitch, she's an electrical engineer with a background in energy management, building optimisation and analytics within the built environment. Emma, noting that Craig has just highlighted Epson's commitment to sustainability, both in its own operations and in supporting those that buy its products, how does CitySwitch support businesses' commitments to sustainability? Or more specifically, what does CitySwitch do?
Thanks for the introduction, Holly. So yeah, like you said there, it's really great to see Epson's commitment both in its products and services and also in its own organisational impacts. And there are a lot of like-minded businesses across Australia that have made sustainability commitments and targets, and are pretty serious about achieving them as well. So we have businesses that are looking for more information and support to achieve those commitments, and also businesses who are leading the way in terms of innovation. And CitySwitch as a program is able to support both ends of those spectrums in different ways. But before I get into that, I will just start with who CitySwitch are and what it is that we do. So CitySwitch is a national sustainability program specifically for office-based businesses. And it's led by a partnership of local councils. So you can see on the slide there that it's a partnership between City of Sydney, North Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, Perth, and we're also in a really crucial partnership with neighbours from New South Wales Government as well. And this partnership allows us to provide a nationally coordinated program with local support and context as well, which is really important to a lot of our signatories. Next slide, thanks. So as a national program, CitySwitch works with over 600 signatories representing more than 1,500 offices and approximately 16% of the commercial office space across Australia. And one of the key findings that George showed us from his report is that tenants make up 44% of the energy use within buildings, which is a pretty significant amount. And CitySwitch is effectively a network of tenancies and businesses wanting to take action on climate change and reduce that 44% as much as we can. We have a wide variety of businesses taking part in the program, from beginners right through to leaders, and from small businesses right through to large and multinational corporations as well, and then everyone in between. And last year, CitySwitch signatories for the program actually reported a total carbon abatement of over 940,000 tonnes of CO2, and that's through a combination of energy efficiency initiatives, through offsetting and through renewable purchases. CitySwitch is free to join for any office-based businesses, and we have resources and support available for those just embarking on their sustainability journey, right through to experts and leaders wanting to know more and wanting to network with other like-minded businesses as well. Next slide, thanks. So a big part of CitySwitch's commitment to setting targets and environmental goals is we ask signatories to move on the journey towards carbon positive by going carbon neutral and setting a transition plan that allows fossil fuel free energy purchases. So on the slide, you can see what we've got as our pathway to carbon positive. So there's kind of 4 crucial steps in there, including rate, renew, reduce, and restore. And, different businesses choose to take that pathway in different ways. They don't all necessarily have to be done in the same order, but they are all really key components. And energy efficiency is a really important step in this process in terms of both reducing the number of offsets and renewable energy that you need to purchase, but also in regards to that continuous improvement aspect and boosting your business resilience as well.
Thanks, Emma. I think that was a really good introduction to what CitySwitch does and how it supports businesses with their sustainability. So noting all of that, what does this research mean for office tenancies and other office-based businesses?
Yeah. So we're actually really excited about this report. So thanks, George, for giving us such a good summary of that. And thanks to the EEC as well for and putting it all together. It's going to be such a great tool for us to be able to use to guide businesses on their energy efficiency. So at CitySwitch, we encourage all our signatories to get NABERS tenancy ratings every year. It's one of the main tools we use in our annual reporting, and rating your office space kind of allows you to know where you stand in terms of energy efficiency by comparing you to other offices around the country. And it gives really great insights as to how much more you can actually do. And we kind of see this report as a really nice complement to that, because it gives a really specific breakdown of the average energy use within tenancies. We've released guides and resources on a lot of the areas covered by this report, and that George highlighted in the end use breakdown, like including how to install energy efficient lighting and how to choose energy efficient equipment, putting better procurement practices in place to streamline that process ongoing as well. When you do decide to upgrade equipment. We also encourage signatories to look at kind of the behavioural changes as well associated with that. So, with regards to things like switching off your lights if you don't have automation in place, looking at shutting down computers at the end of the day and switching off equipment when not in use, because these changes also have quite a significant impact on your energy efficiency. And I guess the main value we see in this report for tenancies and businesses is in being able to easily quantify just how much of an impact equipment upgrades and efficiency measures are going to have upfront. Most tenancies don't have a full breakdown of their energy use and plug load within their office space, because it's just not widely available for the average tenancy. But this report kind of provides an average of that data, which is really helpful. And it's just going to be such a valuable tool that we can use as part of that ongoing energy efficiency discussion.
It's really great to hear how the research is obviously not only informing federal government decisions around what to do with the CBD review and more broadly how to support office tenancies and office-based businesses, but it is enabling CitySwitch to help people on the ground and to use responses to that survey to say, well, here's the clear opportunity for your particular organisation. So with that in mind, Emma, what are the next steps for office-based businesses and office tenancies that want some support?
Yeah, so usually I would direct you to our CitySwitch website, which has like such a wealth of resource available to you on all of the things I've mentioned, plus a lot more, and details on how to get involved. We're currently rebuilding it at the moment due to some really unscheduled downtime by our host. So in the meantime, if you do go to our website, you'll be directed to email info@cityswitch.net.au to get more information if you need. And also on this slide, there's the full details of all of our local program managers as well. And as Holly mentioned at the start of the session, they'll be available to answer questions in the meeting hub if you have any. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emma. I'd highly encourage any office-based businesses on the line to get in touch with Emma and the CitySwitch team. But more importantly, I'd encourage you all to join CitySwitch and the Energy Efficiency Council for the launch of Navigating a Dynamic Energy Landscape, a briefing for office-based businesses on Wednesday, the 9th of December. This is a complimentary event, and we will be joined by some leading office-based businesses as we want to demonstrate how easy some of these energy savings activities are. If you'd like to join us, please follow the registration link currently in the discussion forum and also available in the Energy Efficiency Council Energy Briefing stall in the portal. So noting that we're at the end of our allotted time, I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and especially thank our speakers, George, Craig and Emma, for so generously giving us their time. And I'd encourage all of you to connect with George, Craig and Emma directly through the meeting hub in the platform, and also to reach out to other CitySwitch representatives depending on your location. So Zoe Baker, for those of you in Sydney, is also currently on the portal, as is Phil Russo if you're in Perth. And for everyone else, you can either connect with Danny King or Emma. I'd also like to remind everyone to click on the trophy in the top right-hand corner of the platform so that you can complete a few easy tasks and compete to win a pretty awesome prize, a dinner for two at a swanky restaurant in your capital city of choice. And don't forget to join one of our 3 streams on all electric homes, flexible commercial buildings, or decarbonising industry at 3:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So that's in 10 minutes. So thanks very much, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you on the nights.